Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Live from Super Soul Farm. This is Wisdom of the Sages, a daily yoga podcast with your host Raghunath and co-host and senior educator at the Bhakti Center in New York City, Kaustubha Das. Welcome to the show and welcome to Walk on Wednesday. Walk on Wednesday is, we do it every Wednesday. We invite someone who we find a little interesting, pick their brain a little, introduce them to our community, and make them part of the family. So today we have a special guest. Kaustubha, you want to introduce Keli?
Sure. We're bringing on Keli-Kanana, who's, he's a musician from England, although currently living in Wales. Is that right?
Correct.
Okay. And from what I understand, you English, you make fun of the Welsh a lot. Is that a fact?
It's a mutual relationship, I think.
Okay.
Every country's got that. I think the Swedes and the Norwegians got that. I think the Polish and the Russians have that.
Okay.
I think the Canadians have that with us. We got some Canadians here.
And here we make, us in the city, we make fun of you people upstate, right?
We do that to you guys, I thought.
You see, that's reciprocal.
We have this whole thing about weekenders. Oh, these guys are weekenders. They come
because they come up to Hudson.
Mm.
Right. Okay, but Keli is a musician, and we only met just like just a few minutes ago, but part of what I'm seeing, like what's coming out of COVID, is like a lot of great stuff is going online, and we're meeting, we're communicating in ways that we hadn't before. And Keli's he's been throwing music up on Facebook, and I'll be honest, like I'm the kind of guy I get a little picky about. When I started getting into Bhakti, I kind of just left all like
me too
Western music behind for the most part, right? And just started getting into bhajan and devotional music. And when it came to Western music, I got real picky about it,
especially devotees doing Western music.
Exactly.
Devotees doing Western music, they're like, oh, it's gonna stink.
Right, but I think we're entering a new age now, and I think it's like there's the really talented devotees that are making really good like Western music. And when I saw Keli's videos that he's put, I was like, my God, like they're musicians, and then they're musicians. They're people that are like, that play music, and they're people that you can see they're born to play music, and that music like it appears effortlessly, like music effortlessly flows from them. But I'm watching him like compose his own songs and sing them beautifully, play piano really well, play guitar, like really great guitars, play flute. I'm assuming that you grew up in a musical family. Maybe you could just share a little bit briefly about your background with music.
Yeah. So my father was kind of like, he was like a prog rock musician in the 70s.
Oh, okay, that makes sense.
There we go. Prog rock.
Emerson Lake. Was he Emerson Lake or Palmer?
That's not prog rock, is it?
He was more like, like King Crimson and that kind of.
Right. Okay.
Crimson, Gentle Giant,
those guys. I was in my previous incarnation when he was doing that. So.
Okay.
But yeah, kind of quite a musical family. My brother is a drummer. My father has a twin who was in the band with him. And other than that, my sister's an artist. And my kind of extended family or kind of all musicians or sympathetic to the art.
They got you started young.
Yeah. There's pictures of me on my first birthday, kind of like with some weird plastic toy keyboard or like a drumstick hitting a pot or something,
Sure. Keli,
So
when you moved into the ashram, was it sort of like, I'm going to give up music because I'm going to give up everything? Or was it sort of like, I'm going to move in the ashram, but I'm always going to be doing music? When I moved in, I sort of gave everything up. I was a musician too, but not up to your caliber.
I guess the short version of the story is I was in a jazz band, and it got to the point where we were doing so many gigs, we decided to do a tour. So we bought a decommissioned ambulance and we stripped everything out of it and made it into a bandwagon, and we were going to go touring Europe. But we found Krishna consciousness. We went to Rath Yatra in London, and myself and the 2 other band members all became monks. And yeah, I guess we like, it was a good opportunity to give things up, because music can be stressful. I think anything you do, you know, for some material gain can be stressful. So we decided, okay, we don't need that anymore. Let's just focus on spiritual life.
But then it started
amazing how
creeping
there's-
out of you again. That music started to rise in you somehow. Something happened. Yeah.
Yeah, I couldn't quite give it up. I mean, obviously we were doing lots of kirtan and bhajans, and we were playing music a lot. But I've always had this desire to write music, you know.
Yeah.
And it was just, all of these songs were like bubbling to the surface, and I was trying to push them back down, and they were coming up again. And it just got to the point where I thought, okay, I need to do something with this. Yeah. So.
And so from what I understand, your kind of practice right now is just you wake up every morning, you write a song.
I'm trying to do that. Yeah. I'm trying to even at least kind of force myself to write a song every day. I was saying to you earlier, before everyone else joined, that I had a realization yesterday that music is about conveying life. So I had this realization: if you're just playing music every day and you're not living, then really you've got no music to play. So it's kind of got to an interesting point for me where, okay, I'm playing every day, I'm writing songs every day, but I'm also I have a desire to go and live a little bit, so I have more inspiration to write as well. But you can even write songs about being frustrated that you can't write songs. So
Sure. Well, you know, the devotional arts, whether it's music or drama or poetry or painting, sculpture, whatever it may be, they play such an important role in this type of yoga. It's not a type of yoga where you have to give these things up, but it's a type of yoga where these are engaged, and where one artist can invest their devotion, their devotional emotions in a work of art, and convey them through that work of art, and then the audience can feel that devotion, that emotion through it, and be transformed themselves. So personally, I feel the world is at a place where there's a bhakti revolution taking place. It's starting to take off. There's more and more interest in it, and that music is going to play a huge role in it. And I think you're going to play a huge role in it, guys. So maybe you could play us a little something right now. Can you tell us what song you'd like to play for us?
Yeah. So I'm just about to kind of pursue compiling an album. I'd like to record an album of music.
Great.
And I wrote a song called Falling Upwards, which is inspired by a book written by Richard Rohr.
Sure.
And if anyone hasn't read that book, I highly, 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 highly recommend reading that book, Falling Upwards. But it's the song is meant to reflect what's spoken about in the book, how our spiritual journey, sometimes it can feel like we're not making progress, but actually we are, you know. So this song is meant to convey that in a simple way.
I've seen you play it on piano, but I think you're going to play it on guitar today first. Is that right?
Yeah, if that's okay. The piano I've got is a bit out of tune.
Okay.
So can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can hear you fine.
Great.
Sure. Okay. So yeah, Falling Upwards. The closer I get to the light, the more of my shadow I see. Although it's dark in my heart, I know you're there guiding me. But sometimes it's dark, too dark to see through, and I stumble and trip. But I feel your grip as I'm falling upwards to you. Hey, every saint's got a past, and the sinner's got a future to me. I know I may act real big, but without you I don't feel complete. So I may not be pure, but I need you for sure. When I stumble and trip, I feel your grip as I'm falling upward to you. I'm falling, 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 I'm falling upwards to you. I'm falling, 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 I'm falling upwards to you. Hey, I'm falling, 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 I'm falling upwards to you. Hey, I'm falling, 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 I'm falling upwards to you.
Bravo.
We need an applause button where it goes, everybody's clapping on the Zoom channel here.
Yeah,
You know,
the chat board's going wild.
it's amazing how some people just do that so effortlessly, and some people have to have you know, with music, it's almost sometimes people are just born to do it. It's as if they're doing it for previous lives. You ever feel like that?
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, that was beautiful, and you know, when I listen to your music, I'm hearing so many influences come through. You know, I'm hearing jazz influence. I'm hearing, I don't know, Stevie Wonder. I'm hearing, you know, everything that you're doing from the style of how you play guitar, and piano. Anyway, I just love what you're doing, and I really encourage everyone to seek you out on social media and support you. Where can they find you specifically?
At the moment, I have a Facebook family I'm trying to build under Keli's Clips. That's Kelis, and Clips with a K. So actually, recently I've been working on some collaborations with people, and I've just started planning an album. So I've been kind of quiet for about a week, but I've got a lot coming, and I've got about 800 people in this little Facebook family now. So it's really nice. It's building. I invite you all to come and join the family.
So it's Keli, Kelis .KLIPS at Instagram. That's the Instagram.
Yeah.
What is the address on Facebook?
So the dot just happens on Instagram, but on Facebook it's just Keli's Clips. Or if you'd like, you can. I have my own Facebook page as well, Keli-Kanana Das. And at the moment, I'm writing a song every morning, and I'm uploading a video on my own Facebook page.
What is that? How do you spell that, Kaustubha?
Keli-Kanana, correct?
Kanana.
Yeah, you got it. Yeah.
Okay. I'm sure there's a few Keli-Kananas, so it's the one that's singing songs. Thanks for joining. I think it's a huge part.
Thanks for having me.
And welcome, and you're always welcome. And I think it's a huge part of what we're trying to create, and devotees have been trying to create for a while, is like you need a cushion of a community, like Kaustubha was saying, and it really is revolutionary because we need art and music and people and podcasts and restaurants, and we need a culture of bhakti, or else you get your culture somewhere else, and oftentimes the culture becomes it can be degrading. And when I moved out of the ashram, I love music too. And moved out of the ashram, I didn't even know like, all right, I missed out on grunge. I went through now what am I supposed to listen to musically if I don't listen to bhajans? And so I liked, punk and hardcore. And then I started to I was like, all right, I'm going to listen to hip hop. And I started getting into hip hop, and it was like, have you ever heard DMX, Kaustubha?
Wow.
I think
It
so.
was like, it was really good music, but it was the lyrics were so like, I was like, what? I got to a point where like, I can't put this stuff in my skull. I know.
Is that why you went back to Pippin? And
That's why I went back to show tunes.
Yeah, but just as it can downgrade one, it can really uplift one.
Yeah,
make
thanks.
spiritual life so much easier. So please,
we're waiting.
Yeah, we're waiting for that record.
For your release.
Yeah, thank you. Well, I'm not sure what it entails at the moment. But I invite everyone to help participate in some way. Music is a collaboration. It's not a competition. So I'd like as many people as possible to be involved in it somehow, So thanks for the opportunity anyway.
Thank you for coming on.
I'm going to stick around. Is that okay?
Yeah, please stick around. We might put you on the hot seat. Sometimes we quiz people. So
yes,
okay.
I'm ready.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so let's start with our invocation prayers. Narayanam namaskritya naram chaiva narotamam devim saraswatim vyasam tato jayamudiraye. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is our very means of conquest, one should offer respectful obeisances to the personality of Godhead Narayan, unto Narayan Rishi, the supermost human being, and to Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, and to Srila Vyasadeva, the author. Nasta prayeshva badreshu nityam bhagavat sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtiki. By regular attendance in classes on the Bhagavatam and by rendering service to the pure devotee, all that is troublesome to the heart is almost completely destroyed, and loving service to the personality of Godhead, who is praised with transcendental songs, is established as an irrevocable fact. Om Jnana Tamarandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chaksurun Militam Nena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. So it's exactly what we're doing, Kaustubha. We are hearing the Bhagavatam every day. By hearing the Bhagavatam every day, it starts to recalibrate our brain. The intelligence needs to hear truth on a regular basis. And so I appreciate everybody, especially everybody we see. We never see the others. If you're new to this, we have the others who are listening on podcasts, but we have sort of a family here on Zoom that basically is here every day. And we're trying to sort of retrain ourselves how to think. Right from wrong, left from right. What is normal? We're sort of like recreating normal and keeping spirit at the center of our life. That is normal. Me and my desires and how I'm going to be fulfilled in the material world and how the world should change to fit my desires, and how if I could only adjust this out there, then I'll be happy. It doesn't work. And so we get a little materially frustrated and we want something different. And for the millennia, people have turned to India or spiritual truth or spiritual wisdom. And the only way to really make it work in your life is to do it, as the Bhagavatam says, on a regular basis. So we are here in the first canto and we're inspired.
Okay. You ready to dive in?
Yeah.
So we're in the first canto. Chapter 15, entitled The Pandavas Retire Timely. And we're on text number 27.
27. So now this is Arjuna speaking.
Arjuna speaking. And, he's just, he's wandered in, again, Yudhishthira, the king, his elder brother, had witnessed so many inauspicious omens, and then he sees Arjuna. Arjuna walks in there, his face is, he can see how he's all withered up. Something's going on. He knows it must be that Krishna's left, and then Arjuna reveals, yes, it's that Krishna's left. Not only Krishna left, his entire Yadu dynasty has left in this bizarre way. I've lost all my Shakti. I've lost all my power. And so in one sense, it's so depressing, right? It's like, oh my God, life is so bad right now. Like everything, all the people that are near and dear to us are gone, and this and that. But then comes this verse that he speaks today. It's a simple verse, but there's so much here in this verse. And then Srila Prabhupada's going to share within it's a long commentary. We'll read parts of it today, but within that commentary, there's a lot. Prabhupada kind of gives a synopsis of the Bhagavad-gita. But why don't we read the verse?
Now I am attracted to those instructions imparted to me by the personality of Godhead, Govinda, because they are impregnated with the instructions for relieving the burning heart in all circumstances of time and space.
Yeah.
I think it's safe to say the material world creates a burning heart.
There's a song right there, Kaylee.
There, we got you covered, really.
That's where this tomorrow morning. Work on that one. Burning heart.
Those instructions imparted to me by Krishna, because they impregnated with the instructions for relieving the burning heart. This is the material world, the burning heart.
And what's so amazing to me is that the idea that simply by meditating on the Bhagavad-gita, because that's what he's speaking about, right? Those instructions that he shared with me, you know, those, and so just by, no matter how down we get, this literature offers relief. It offers truth, and ultimately truth offers relief, you know, so that one can even be going through those very difficult times and feel a type of solace from it, just from the truth, you know, that, because ultimately this world, you know, a lot of our philosophy is meant to make us a little pessimistic about this world, to recognize the problems with this world. But behind that pessimism, there's an optimism. And we just need to connect with that reality more, and everything opens up. So there's always an optimism there. And I think that's Arjuna's express, you know, when I meditate on the truth that Krishna shared with me on the battlefield, how we're all eternal, right? Even though it appears that everything shifted and changed and it's not going to come back, actually reality is eternal, and reality is blissful. And by contemplating those instructions, I'm feeling some solace from that. And it's not just like covering it up, but it's like connecting to what's beyond it. Yeah.
The material world is promises of satisfaction.
Yeah.
Just promises. It's just, and it just never delivers.
Or if it delivers, then it doesn't last, right?
It doesn't last. It goes away, or it never lives up to what it's supposed to be.
Yeah.
It's a good point. It's like a spirit. It's a material cynicism. I'm not a cynical guy at all. I'm the opposite. I'm a pretty positive person, but you're meant to develop a material cynicism, because the material, and you have to lose faith that the material world will deliver what it's so-called promising, and put your faith in there's a spiritual desires that will be fulfilled by walking that path of spiritual life. It actually delivers. It actually fulfills what that heart wants. That God-shaped hole becomes fulfilled.
And so, yeah, well, let's read some parts. Prabhupada, he's gonna take this as an opportunity to speak about the Bhagavad-gita, and he'll mention, he says, the Bhagavad-gita being spoken by the Supreme Personality of Godhead is the essence of all Vedic wisdom. So that means that in this one book, you get the essence. It's all boiled down into this one book, into 700 verses. It is nicely presented by the Lord himself for all who have very little time to go through the vast Vedic literatures like the Upanishads, Puranas, and Vedanta Sutras. Okay, so that's us. We're not these great philosophers. We're these dented cans. We're these people that don't have a lot of time in life, right? We're running around trying to support ourselves and deal with everything that we have to deal with. But in the Bhagavad-gita, you get that, as Prabhupada says, a nice presentation here. And so let's go down a little further and read. Prabhupada begins to speak about the Bhagavad-gita. He says, and he speaks about it in terms of what's called the 5 subjects of the Bhagavad-gita. So he says, the faithful human being who is desirous of being liberated from the clutches of material existence can very easily take advantage of the Bhagavad-gita. And with this in view, the Lord instructs Arjuna as if Arjuna were in need of it. In the Bhagavad-gita, 5 important factors of knowledge have been delineated pertaining to 1, the Supreme Lord, 2, the living beings, 3, nature. Nature here means the material world, the material energy that we're living in the midst of. 4, time and space. And 5, the process of activity, which is also called karma. Right. So Prabhupada, he speaks about this nicely in the introduction to the Bhagavad-gita as it is as well. Normally, they don't say time and space. They just say time, right? So it's the Supreme Lord is Ishvara. The living beings are jiva. Nature, what word do they use? Prakriti. Kala for time, and karma for the process of activity, right? Understanding these 5 categories. He says, out of these, the Supreme Lord, Ishvara, and the living being are qualitatively one. The difference between the two has been analyzed as the difference between the whole and the part and parcel, right? The part and parcel is dependent on the whole, right? And the whole is from which the part and parcel comes. Nature, so those are 2 of the subjects. Then nature, the material energy. Nature is inert matter. The first 2 are not inert, they're conscious. Nature is inert matter displaying the interaction between the different modes. That's the gunas. And eternal time and unlimited space are considered to be beyond the existence of material nature. I'll take a little time to try to make all this kind of clear, because I know it's throwing all this terminology out. But we've been speaking in previous days about how this material world is like a virtual reality, like a computer program, and then time is like this software that you install into it. And so when he says time and space are beyond material, or beyond the existence of material nature, it means it's something beyond that gets installed into it, right? So time is installed into this material world, and makes it transform. And then he says, activities of the living being, or karma, are different varieties of aptitudes which can entrap or liberate the living being within the material nature. We're all given different aptitudes, and based on that, we act in a certain way, and that those actions may liberate us or bind us. All these subject matters are concisely discussed in the Bhagavad-gita. And later, the subject matters are elaborated on in Srimad Bhagavatam for further enlightenment. Out of the 5 subjects of the Supreme Lord, the living entity, nature, and time and space are eternal. But the living are eternal. But the living entity, nature, and time are under the direction of the Supreme Lord, who is absolute and completely independent of any control. The Supreme Lord is the supreme controller. The material activity, karma now, the material activity of the living being is beginningless. We've been trapped in actions and reactions going back further than we can trace. But it can be rectified by transferal into the spiritual quality. Thus, it can cease its material qualitative reactions. So I know that was a lot to throw out there. What do you think, Raghu?
Well, Kaustubha, let me jump in on your analogy, because I'm really liking this analogy a lot. Suppose
Okay.
we're playing Asteroids. I'm going to date myself.
Okay.
Asteroids, the video game. And you get 4 ships. I'm just saying, you get 4 ships.
Okay.
Each ship that you're playing, you're in it. You're fearful. They're dropping asteroids on you. You're breaking them apart. You're getting higher and higher levels. Then that ship dies. And then you get another ship, but you got the same numbers. Just like Keli. He's got this body. He's born into this body, but he's a great musician. He can't figure out why he can play the guitar. He can play the piano. He barely has to take lessons. He can sing.
Aptitudes. Prabhupada's mentioning aptitudes, right?
Yeah, and then he dies again. He takes another birth. He gets another ship, so to speak. At any moment, his mother, his wife, or whatever could call him in. Hey, time for dinner. He walks away from the game, and he's completely. He's not the spaceship. He doesn't have asteroids to kill. There are no enemies coming. He's just going to eat dinner. This is sort of like walking away from our material existence in one sense, where there is a whole nother reality where I'm not identifying with the fear and the stress of these giant boulders coming down upon me. So the living entity is playing the video game. We're attached to the video game. We're suffering and enjoying. I got the high score. But at any moment, you can walk away from it. And you actually have nothing to do with it in one sense. That's the analogy of time, I think.
Right.
Because time is bound in that video game. Does that make sense? I'm just trying to clarify your analogy.
Yeah, no, that's very helpful. And when I think we can take these 5 subjects. I know that they were spoken about by one of the really important commentators on Bhagavad-gita, Baladeva Vibhushana. I don't know if that particular analysis precedes him or not. I'm not sure. It likely may. But when we look at it, we can understand like this, that it's saying, let's break down the components of existence, right? And we can break them into 5 categories. And then we want to analyze, how do these components interact with each other? And when we understand that, then we can determine how we can interact with those components in a way to actualize our greatest potential. And that's what the Bhagavad-gita is meant to help us do. And that greatest potential is ultimately to become free from the influence of the material world and become a, entirely pure spirit soul. But if you look at these 5, sometimes they're called, like the first 3, God, the living entity, and the material world, are called jagat, jiva, and jagadisha, right? 'Cause jagat means like the universe. Jiva means the individual soul, like each of us. And Jagadisha means the controller of the universe, or God, right? So you have Jagat, Jiva, Jagadisha, right? Those 3. And then the other 2 are agents of transformation within the realm of the Jagat, right? Like what makes them move. And one of them is called time. And time is an involuntary one for us, right? It's like we can't do anything to stop it. It moves on its own. So the first agent of transformation within the material world is time, and that's nothing we can do about it. But the second one, you see, because Prabhupada mentioned it, he said the first 4 are eternal principles, and the last one is temporary, in the sense that we can't do anything about time. That's involuntary. But the decisions that we make in the realm of karma, the choices that we make and the reactions to those choices, we have some influence on that. And so the thrust of the Bhagavad-gita is how to channel that agent of transformation, karma. How do we act in this world to derive the best results, right? And so when we see in the Gita, when Arjuna is, he's confused, right? Right in the beginning of the Bhagavad Gita, he's not just confused, he's almost like breaking down. But then he turns to Krishna, and there's that famous verse 2:7, where he kind of surrenders as a disciple to Krishna. And he says, Prachami tvam dharma samudha chetaha, that samudha chetaha, my intelligence has become bewildered, right? This material energy has bewildered me. I'm lost in it right now. I'm the jiva in the jagat, disconnected from the jagadisha.
I'm the jiva in the Jagadisha.
Okay, Kaylee, work on that. You want to hear that one by Saturday? Have that one done. and so my mind has become confused. Samudha chetaha. I'm bewildered. So he says, Prachami tvam dharma. I'm asking you, Prachami tvam dharma. Please tell me, what is dharma? What is the best course of action for me? How can I act in such a way where I get the best results? And so that's where the idea of karma comes in, that we can make choices that can bring different, and so the whole Bhagavad Gita is this, how to understand everything in the right context and then move through it. And Prabhupada is going to go on about that. You want to continue a bit with the purport here? I'll read some more. He says, both the Lord and the living entity are cognizant. They're conscious, right? The material world's not, but the Lord and we feel, we experience. He says, both the Lord and the living entity are cognizant, and both have the sense of identification, of being conscious as living force. But the living being under the condition of material nature, called Mahatattva, the material energy, misidentifies himself as being different from the Lord, right? We feel disconnected. We are pure energy of the Lord. That's all that we're made out of. But we're confused, thinking we're disconnected or independent. He says, the whole scheme of Vedic wisdom, of yoga wisdom, you could say, is targeted to the aim of eradicating such a misconception or disconnection, and thus liberating the living being from the illusion of material identification. So all our actions are meant to lead to the deepening of that understanding. And Bhagavad Gita and Bhagavatam are going to show us how we can live, work, raise a family, pass through life in such a way where that illusion erodes, and the truth of our connection is revealed again.
All right, here's the tricky part, Kaustubh.
Yeah.
The tricky part is if we're using and going to stay with this analogy of the video game, and you can walk away from the video game, it's sort of like, hold it a second. Everything I have in this world is unreal, or at least at the very least, it's not what it appears to be. So I'm looking at my, beautiful daughter and my wife and my home. It's like to understand, like, okay, wait a second. This is dreamlike. It almost makes you feel like, wait, it almost like makes you feel like, how much of this fantasy am I going to live? And this is the problem with bhakti, is whereas other yoga systems, you actually walk away from the material world and sort of recreate your world, and you have no attachments. You walk away from your parents, from family life, from creating wealth in the world, or creating a home in the world, or a career in the world, and you become this, sadhu, where we are still messing around with material nature, but we have to see it for what it is. It's a very delicate tightrope we're walking in bhakti. In one sense, we say, yeah, you can listen to music. Yeah, you can go out to a spiritual restaurant, or read other books. Like Keli recommended a book, and so yeah, we can read this book and find some great things there. You're messing around with material energy, and there's a serious problem with the material energy. Is it entraps you? So can you give me some advice, man? Give me some advice. How can I be in the dream, but use the dream to escape the dream?
Well, now, of course,
that's the question.
Well, of course, that's what the Bhagavad-gita is all about. And you're right. The Bhagavad-gita is going to, commonly yogis and commentators on ancient yogic literature have divided the yoga into 4 different paths of yoga, right? They speak of Ashtanga yoga, which is and Jnana yoga. And those 2 are kind of those paths like you were speaking about, at least the way the Gita speaks of them, and the way much of the yoga literature speaks of them, is they're paths where you leave family and you leave your business, or your occupation, all your social roles, mother, father, husband, wife, or your role in society, whatever your occupation is. Those are all seen as illusory, as strong potential for deepening my illusion and binding me further. Walk away from them, leave them all behind, so you can kind of just focus on reality. Whereas the other 2 paths that are mentioned in the Bhagavad-gita, karma yoga and bhakti yoga, they're these paths where you engage with your socially with the world. You embrace your social roles. Again, mother, father, husband, wife, ethical business person, righteous leader, whatever it may be, loyal, laborer, whatever it may be. You embrace, you simultaneously embrace a temporary identity, knowing that identity is temporary, but you engage it in such a way to unveil the permanent, the eternal identity which lies underneath it, right? So like being a good father, that's a temporary identity. You weren't a father at one point, and at some point you're going to leave that body and could become anything in the next life. So that's a temporary dharma. It's a temporary role, but it's a role that can be engaged in such a way where it helps unveil your eternal identity, which lies underneath it. But what Krishna says, you're saying it's a tightrope, and no doubt it is, like living in this world and not becoming entangled by it. But Krishna's going to say, actually, it's a much easier path, and it's a quicker path, right?
Sure.
Because you can engage this, because it's very hard to deny the senses, where in these paths you can engage the senses. We can listen to Keli's songs. We can take we can go out to what's growing in the garden now, Raghunath? Stuff starting to sprout?
What's growing in the garden? Radishes, just harvested radishes.
It doesn't sound too exciting. You can go get those radishes.
There's a bunch of radishes.
Are you a rabbits or what's going on?
Strawberries and blueberries.
Now,
time.
Okay, so you can go and grab some strawberry. Hey, I know the blueberries are growing in your area. I was up there picking them last year.
Yeah,
And
out of control.
yeah. So you can pick those blueberries, right? Then you could take them and you can bring them into the kitchen. You cook them down, and you sweeten them, and you create this.
Make a pie,
What
make
is
a
what
pie.
is more delicious, right? Than like
Yeah.
blueberry jam but we can learn to do it, because when we're reading these books and contemplating these ideas and developing in the heart just a little bit of affection for Krishna, for God, then you can cook that in a whole nother state of consciousness. You can pick the blueberries, you can cook the blueberries, and then you offer the blueberries.
It's
And
true. It's actually true, because the way you said it first was sort of like, I love blueberries. We can cook them. What's better than a blueberry pie? Or
Okay.
you walk out and you see, this year we're growing gooseberries, like the amlas. Say,
Gooseberries.
wow, amlas. I'm going to offer this to Krishna. This one's sweet. These blueberries, I'm going to offer this. It's the exact same thing, but my ego's out of the center.
Yeah.
I think it's the Bhagavatam that uses the analogy. Sometimes when you're walking in the forest barefoot, you step on a thorn, and you don't have tweezers. You're out in the forest. The only thing you can use to get out that thorn is another thorn. You use the thorn to take out the thorn. So we're using the dream in Bhakti. We use this dream to get out of the dream. We're using the blueberries. We're not saying I'm going to fast. No, nothing. I'm not going to. They taste too good. I knew a guy in an ashram who wanted to deny his senses. So whenever he'd get some food, he'd blend it all together. Did you know this guy? He'd blend it all together. So it'd just be like,
I don't know.
It'd just be like mush.
Okay.
And he didn't want to enjoy it. But the idea is, it's not for our enjoyment. We're using the material world to offer back to the spiritual world. And we do that with our thoughts, with our actions, with our music, right? With the family, etc. But you just got to be careful not to let that entangle you, which comes from like the me-centeredness.
Yes, exactly. So our karma, our actions in this world, two people may externally be doing the same karma, but one is informed or let's say infused informed with knowledge and infused with devotion, right? So that I'm not picking these blueberries and thinking how I'm going to enjoy them. I'm thinking how I can offer them, what a joy will be to serve the one I love, how I actually derive pleasure from that, and then the very act of enjoying them afterward is spiritualized. Spiritualized in the sense that we say, on a mystical level, that the food itself, after it's been offered in devotion like this, becomes spiritual, and by eating it you become spiritualized. But also beyond that, that the whole act now has become harmonious or consistent with your true nature, your true dharma, which lies underneath it all. And the more that we act in that mode and think in that mode, the more that it awakens. And so that path is easier than wandering off to the force and denying the senses. And that path is faster, according to Krishna in the Bhagavad-gita, which is, as was mentioned here, the synopsis or the kind of condensed version of all the Vedic knowledge. And so that path becomes a beautiful path. Again, it's a path of art, it's a path of beauty, it's a path of joy, and it involves relationships and so on. But we're doing them from another platform now. So whereas in Ashtanga Yoga, one wants to settle the mind and still it and hold it on one spot, or in Jnana Yoga, one wants to break all the attachments in the mind through cold analysis and renunciation. In Bhakti, the idea is I'm going to harmonize my mind with the nature of the soul. If the nature of the soul has beauty, it has variety, has affection, has devotion, then I can engage my mind in such a way where my mind begins to take that shape. And when my mind and my soul reflect one another, when they're on the same page, we could say, then there's no inner conflict, and hence no suffering. Or you could say there's a union between the mind and the self now. Rather than conflict, there's a union. And what's another word for union, Raghunath? Yoga. So that's Bhakti yoga, right? That we through what we bring through the senses, the right music, the right visuals, right, the right sounds, the right tastes, etc. that the mind is reprogrammed, just as we reprogram a computer by downloading new programs on it. In this way, through our actions, through our karma, we can download new impressions in the mind, impressions that are harmonious. With, like we heard that song, you know, Falling Upwards. It was a sincere kind of prayer. It was talking to God, right, and saying, I'm going through my struggles in life, but you know what? I have this gratitude in my heart that even though I'm going through all this crap in life, right, there's some gratitude in me that I realize that through the discomfort or pain that I go through in life, I'm actually thinking about you more. And through thinking about you, I feel this connection. And that itself is satisfying. And I feel like I'm coming closer. So I'm, in a sense, falling up. And so our whole life can kind of become like our life in this world, that can become our path where we're engaging with this world. It's not going to be easy, right? But we can beautify it. We can come together and beautify it, but dovetail it all. As Prabhupada, I think, was using that word, like dovetail it all so that it's connecting.
Maya or illusion is sort of like you're trying to like get out of a riptide, and it's sort of like just pulling you out to sea, and you're trying to like swim in, and you know, especially since we've been doing this morning program. Without that morning program, like in the ashram, it's so easy. It's all there is spiritual life all day long. When you're out there in the material world, like the rest of us are, you need to put that in place as a reminder of our identity. Because you go to sleep, you wake up, and immediately you just dive back into the material world. So you need on a regular basis is like to hear on a regular basis is so important. And it's one of the very slippery slopes, especially if you've lived in an ashram. And then you get out of the ashram, the material world becomes sort of overwhelming. And it's a very delicate, it's a very delicate balance, like riding that, maybe it's easier if you've never lived in an ashram, actually, because I think you don't have to deal with like, okay, I was fully into it this way, then I'm going to get fully out of it. Finding that balance, maybe it's going to be easier for our audience that has never lived in an ashram, because they can just add a little bit into their life on a regular basis where they start feeling a deeper satisfaction.
Yeah, you know, I think
sometimes I've wondered about that. Maybe an ashram was a sort of a setback in a lot of ways.
Well, there are such advantages to what we gained in the ashram, right? But I think you and I and our broader community, we really need to create these regular extended ashram experiences for people, that even if you live at home with a family and a job and all that, that you can take a month and live that ashram life, right?
That's what we do in January. You can visit us in January at the Eco Village with Raghunath Swami.
Yeah.
That was a perfect setup for a plug, Kaustubha.
Yeah. But you know what I would love to do is like, you know, set it up so that we're at your place at Super Soul Farm, you know, people can come there in the summertime or something like that.
That's what we're doing. That's what we're doing in
this weekend.
Oh, this weekend we're having a save.
What do you go ahead and say what you're going to say?
No, but I'm saying we're going to have a Wisdom of the Sages retreat. We just got to put it on the calendar for over 1 day Wisdom of the Sages retreat at Super Soul Farm over Labor Day weekend.
And that's great. Okay.
We're going to
but I'm talking about something longer than 1 day. I'm talking about, you know, like a week or a month, like, or
2 months.
Summer, 2 months. Yeah, where you could.
The entire summer. Summer and autumn.
No, that's what I think. I think Super Soul Farm should be like June, July, August. You can come for like any amount of time you want in there. Wake up early, go through a program, do some service, learn, you know, get some education, walk away with some real ashram experience that you then carry into the world, you know.
All right.
You do that?
Yeah. I'm just going to text my wife right now. Hold on a second. Honey, we got like 40 people coming over for 3 months.
She's probably listening. So
she is.
You've got it already. You don't need to text.
All right. You want to wrap up with a little bit more nectar?
A little more music?
There?
Or what? Reading or music? What were you going to say?
Reading. We got 5 minutes.
I thought I was bring Kaylee back. I was like, yeah, I'm down for that. Okay. Let's see. When such an illusion is eradicated by knowledge and renunciation, Gyan and Vairagya, the living beings are responsible actors and enjoyers too. So we can act in this world and be happy. The sense of enjoyment in the Lord is real, but such a sense in the living being is a sort of wishful desire only. God enjoys his own energy, and we kind of think we can enjoy his energy, but it's kind of wishful thing. This difference in consciousness is the distinction between the two identities, namely the Lord and the living being. Otherwise, there's no difference between the Lord and the living being. We're both composed of spiritual energy. We're both eternal. The nature of us both is that we're fixed in truth. The nature of us both is that we're blissful. But one is the creator and the enjoyer, the primary enjoyer of the energy. And we try to usurp that role, right? And all we need to do is reconnect, and everything's put back in place. He said, I'll read that again. This difference in consciousness is the distinction between the two identities, namely the Lord and the living being. Otherwise, there's no difference between the Lord and the living being. And now comes a big sentence. The living being is therefore eternally one and different simultaneously. The whole instruction of the Bhagavad-gita stands on this principle, right? That we are one with God, and at the same time we're different from God.
Mara, can you put this on the board, please? Everyone should know, everyone listening, at least on Zoom, should know this phrase that Lord Chaitanya coined, achintya beta beta tattva. It's like this is probably, I feel like people, if they just understand this phrase, they can understand all the teachings of the Vedas, which is we are one with God, but we're also different from God. And the analogy they use, like a drop of water from the sea. It's just like the sea, but it's also completely different. A drop of the sea is not the sea, but in one sense it is the sea, right? A spark of the divine. We are all divine, but we're like a spark of the divine.
Especially,
and therefore,
no, I'm sorry, please continue.
Oh, you're wonderful.
Well, I was going to say, especially the analogy of the sun and the sunlight, right? Or the ray of the sun, right?
Right, or the spark of the fire. Well, I like the spark of the fire too, because the spark of the fire can land on the dry grass and become extinguished. Yeah. So we can be covered, even though we are pure, we're covered. Mm-hmm. And our yoga process is not converting somebody, but it's by the association, right? Yeah. With like-minded people, it starts to uncover the fire that's already within us. And then all of a sudden, whew, and that's where you find these great souls, these liberated souls. That's why I hang out with Kaustubha. He lights my fire.
That's another song.
Come on, Kaustubha, light my fire. My fire. Oh.
So, but with the rays of the sun, the idea is that the sun has certain qualities, right? Heat and light. Now, the rays of the sun, they have the exact same qualities, right? The rays of the sun have heat and light, but the ray is the source is the sun, and the ray comes from the source, but it has the same qualities. And so similarly, we all got the quality of God is that God is eternal, God is fixed in truth, God is blissful, and we have those same qualities, but it's just that they've been, like you said, they become covered over. And
what we do, Kaustubha, if you don't mind me, but what we're practicing right now, we are in practice of what we actually are. Like in our liberated stage, we don't actually ever become the whole. We're always in loving service. We have just forgotten, and we're just serving our senses. So in our most purified state, we're still the servant of divinity, but we just forgot. So sadhana bhakti is a practice of our authentic self. And then as the fake self starts to fall away and there's just our genuine self, we're still doing what we're doing. We're still doing it. It never goes away.
Yeah, well, bhakti is, they say the unique thing about bhakti, we mentioned those four paths, but the unique thing about the bhakti path, one of the unique things, is that the means and the end are the same. Right?
Yeah.
The acts of devotion, or what you do as the means, and acts of devotion is ultimate. It's just a maturing of it, a full uncovering of it. And that is why part of the reason why it's such a nice path.
You faked me out. You did a fake pause, and I hit it. Every day this week, you'd be like, okay, that was a good time to hit the button. That was a good time to hit the button. So
You
I've been
got it.
sitting with my phone here to hit that button, and you get a fake pause, and then you start it up.
Okay. Well, you know, I'm messing with you a little bit. I'm making sure you're keeping you on your toes.
I am. I'm sitting here like neurotic with this phone and the play button like this all day. I'm waiting. Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Kaustubha. And thanks to Kaylee. We are impressed by you.
Unmute
You're
yourself.
going to fulfill a lot of our musical desires and uplift them. I want to fall upward with you.
Yes, let's all fall upwards together.
And make sure you check Kaylee out. And what's your Facebook page again?
Kaylee. Yeah, go ahead.
You can go on Kaylee's Clips. That's Clips with a K, or you
That's
can just
Instagram.
and
it's
Facebook.
both.
I have a Facebook and an Instagram.
Okay.
Kaylee's
All right.
Clips.
We're going to find you. We're going to post it on our general.
Come and find me.
thread.
All right.
All right. And thanks
Listen,
for everybody joining us late on Zoom that I didn't say good morning to. Good morning and welcome. And I really appreciate everybody just showing up on a regular basis, taking in the Bhagavatam. And we have yoga classes. Mara, what's going on in yoga today?
Kumiji is teaching at 6 p.m.
Awesome. So if you're part of our Patreon party that's going on, thanks for all the support. We really appreciate it. That's how this boat stays afloat. There's Kumi's teaching tonight at 6 p.m. You can join the Patreon at patreon.com/wisdom of the sages. And you can join at any level you like. We appreciate it. And if you feel like you're getting something out of it more, then you give more. You give whatever you can give. But we're just trying to create a whole community here of yoga resource for yoga teachers or for people who just want to live this yoga culture. Thanks everybody so much, and thanks for everybody listening on Apple Podcasts. Make sure you go give us a 5-star review. It makes a big difference. But for now, the most important part of the day is we lip sync to kirtans.